Aloha, I'm Lyla Berg. Mahalo for tuning in to Island Focus. As you can see, we're filming this program again remotely from my home in recognition of the stay-at-home directive so that you can continue to meet the people who are making a difference in our lives, particularly now as we navigate through COVID-19. Mahalo for joining us. With us today on Island Focus, I have the pleasure of talking with Dr. Josh Green, who's also Hawaii's Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for joining us, Josh.
Aloha, Lyla. Thank you.
Perhaps you can share with us today, in particular, how has Hawaii fared in this whole COVID-19, and to what do you attribute that?
Well, Hawaii's done extraordinarily well, although our heart still breaks a little bit every time we do lose a soul. 17 people have passed. But if you look at how Hawaii has fared versus so many other places, in fact, maybe every other place, we've done better than we could ever have dreamed. We've had the lowest rate of cases and we've had the lowest mortality rate. But the real success story is the shared sacrifice people were willing to take upon themselves. We have 1.4 million people who decided that they would set aside their own personal interest almost always in order to prevent spread of what is a very, very lethal virus. And it's meant economic crisis after crisis, and it's meant changing the way we look at this new decade. It's meant changing some of our plans for the future, but it also meant keeping our kupuna alive, preventing a mass casualty like occurred in New York and Spain and in other countries across Southeast Asia. So it's been extraordinary. And this is just the beginning. But through phase one, which is pretty much the medical crisis phase, it couldn't have gone really any better. And so I'm so proud of people for being willing to actually demonstrate Ohana rather than just say it and then we allowed the virus to spread like it spread in so many other places. It's been extraordinary.
I think part of the challenge, as we recognize that we have been successful at keeping each other safe and healthy, is that we go back to, okay, well, now everything's fine again.
Well, we have to change our priorities. And I think that that is happening in real time. People see how different it can be from one moment to the next. Historically, in the emergency department, I saw this happen when people went through a life-changing moment because in a second they went from visiting me in the hospital, we confirmed that they had cancer, and then their life changed, and priorities have to change like that. Or a tragic car accident happens and the family's life changed. Well, this happened to a whole society. And so our priorities over this 3 or 4 month period have necessarily changed because we now see that something can sweep into our lives and force us to be different. I really do believe, and I don't want it to sound hocus pocus, I really believe that a lot of people had to take inventory about what mattered in their life because they went through an extreme emotional sense of fear, which is extreme. It's normal, totally normal to have felt that way if anyone wants to, to reflect. And then on the other side, now say, okay, what's really important to me? Because I had that time with family and we didn't lose anyone. Or even if we lost some friend of ours, like I lost one of my closest friends from college at age 51 died from COVID-19. Unbelievable, healthy and gone. We see what's important to us. So I think Hawaii will now look at itself as truly a family, having gone through this and succeeded where others maybe didn't, and know that our priorities have to be different when we look at tourism or we look at what Hawaii means to the outside world. You've asked me on different occasions, what I thought about change and how we could change. Well, COVID-19 actually made change possible. Now, it's been rough, and we have to recover, and we have to restore the health of our economy like we restored the health of our people already, the physical health. But we have a canvas out there now that is large parts of it are now not painted. It used to be painted to every corner, and you knew every last person was going to be based on tourism that came here, and every decision was going to be made to preserve the status quo and something special we had in Hawaii. And now large parts of the canvas are not painted. And I hope that people take away from this very rough experience that as you come out of high school or out of your college program, or you change your discipline and job because it doesn't exist anymore, there is new canvas to paint. And I hope that it will be special for Hawaii in the latter half of this year and then going forward.
How can we strengthen the immunity of our communities? Because what has changed is the way we interact. I even got a letter from one of the airlines saying that we can expect that when we board a plane in Hawaii, there'll no longer be hugs, no longer be kisses, and someone say, "Oh, nice to see you again." How do we build that community immunity?
Well, we saw how vulnerable we were, it turns out, and that one thing could sweep through and destabilize everything. A virus threatened the very fabric of our core, and it forced us, because we were too monolithic. It forced us to put all those eggs in one basket, and then when that crumbled, where were we? So now we will be stronger and more immune, if you will, if we have a better commitment to, say, the cultural underpinnings of Hawaii. Because you can't take the cultural underpinnings away from Hawaii. You can take away the tourism for 3 or 4 months, and you can take away shopping for 3 or 4 months, and you can take away restaurants for 3 or 4 months. But if we commit ourselves to the arts, and we can commit ourselves to culture, and we commit ourselves to education, and we can maybe even commit ourselves to intellectual ventures that can build Hawaii's economy, it will be more difficult for us to lack that immunity, so to speak. And I think that people will be a lot stronger because they're now going to realize maybe church was more important than I thought to me, or my form of spirituality, not church. Or maybe it was more important for me to foster my intellectual self rather than just my economic self. I think that the reason this happened was because the world got so imbalanced towards the rat race and chasing economic growth and chasing all of those material parts of life that we overwhelmed our system, as we've been overwhelming it from a climate perspective and overwhelming it from a super wealth versus poverty perspective. And when that thing got so far outweighed on one way, we cracked. And then lots of our pieces came tumbling down. So if you want to speak to immunity, you build those other pieces up so that one virus can't take us down.
Parting thoughts to the audience as we conclude our short conversation today.
Know that you've done something extraordinary as a part of one whole. It's really been one Ohana, which is something many of us never were sure we would see. Poor and rich, black and white, Asian, not Asian, people came together to save one another by not allowing this virus to take us all out. And that will never be forgotten by me, and I hope no one else will forget.
We appreciate your voice as the doctor, as a husband, as a father, and definitely as our Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. It's great to be with you, Lyla.
Here with us today is Caroline Cadirao, who is the Executive Director for the Executive Office on Aging.
Thank you.
You have your hands full, I'm sure, with our senior population. Can you share with us some of the adjustments that your office is making and some of the resources available, and what would you like us to know about our senior community?
Well, this whole COVID-19 experience has really changed and had us be more creative on how we're delivering services and supports to our older adults in our community. Because of the orders to shelter in place, stay safe, stay home, we really had to look at how can we get out services and supports to older adults, ensuring that people could stay home, receive food or nutrition so that they could shelter in place was our biggest goal. We also have been looking at how do we avoid social isolation for these individuals who used to go out into the community, go to senior centers, go to congregate sites, take advantage of all the things offered by the senior parks and recreation. So, addressing those issues have been forefront of our office.
How do you reach out to the community?
By state and federal law, we are in charge of making sure that older adults are served throughout the state. Within each county, we have what we call our area agencies on aging. they're the ones that are really at the forefront of providing the services and supports and working with the nonprofit agencies that provide those services and supports in the community. We're more at the level of policy, program development. So as COVID-19 hit our shores and we had the order came out to stay home, stay safe, we really had to look at how do we get those services and supports out to the individuals. So that's what we've been working with our counterparts, the area agencies on aging, to make sure that they can do that effectively, that they have the resources available to them to make those things happen.
How do we navigate that?
If they have a need and they need to reach out, we would really encourage them to call our Aging and Disability Resource Center. It's a statewide number. It's 643-2372 or 643-ADRC. They can share with the person that answers the phone what they're looking for, maybe any problems that they're having, and then the ADRC will put them in touch with the resources available to them in their community.
So, some of the problems or the issue that I've heard you talk about is food security. It's also recreation activities and the emotional isolation as opposed to solitude at this time.
Right? I would suggest, even though we can't physically be close, and that's hard because I think our elderly population enjoys those times together with family, with friends. But I would say pick up the phone, call a friend. We've had so many organic, natural things happen because of COVID-19 outside of our regular services and supports that are provided through our programs is just telling people, pick up the phone, call a friend, schedule it, make it an ongoing event like you would going to your club on a Wednesday. Make your Wednesday your call to your friend or your loved one and really reach out and stay connected because that's very important.
Can you speak a little bit more about the resources that you have available? Kupuna Hour, for instance.
Being part of the Department of Health, our main concern is for the safety of our older adults and then everything else that comes with that, But I believe that if people just follow the rules that have been put into place and take advantage of those opportunities to go during kapuna hours where there's less people and they can shop in a more quiet environment, a less crowded environment, I think that that's a good resource for individuals to take advantage of.
What are you envisioning, or what do you see as we emerge? Because we are on our way out of the main crisis, and everyone talks about the new normal. I'm not sure what that is. I think we'll know it when we're there.
Yeah. New normal, you're right. We're not going to know what that is until we get there. Individuals can get back to the lives that they were leading with independence. That's one of the people having independence and dignity is very important to our office, but also to remain safe during this time. So ensuring that they follow the social distancing guidelines, that they are mindful of if they're sick to stay home, not to go out into the community. I think as we continue down this road and things start to open up, I think putting policies into place that will keep individuals safe and ensuring that those are followed will be very important. But that's something that we're working on here at the office.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've just had the opportunity to meet Caroline Cadirao, who is the Director for the Executive Office on Aging. Glad you could join us. Today on Island Focus, you'll have the pleasure of meeting Pankaj Bono, who is the Director of the State of Hawaii Department of Human Services. So nice to see you again, Pankaj.
It's my pleasure, Lyla.
Well, thank you for taking the time and for helping us understand the Department of Human Services is a state department, and what exactly do you do and what services are available?
The Department of Human Services, as you well know, with your many, many years at the legislature, that we were constituted to provide safety net services for the residents of Hawaii, especially during difficult times of disasters, economic crisis, and similar sort of circumstances. This pandemic is one of those examples. We provide financial assistance to needy population of Hawaii. We provide food benefits. We call it Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. We provide healthcare insurance, which is Medicaid. We call it Quest. We provide childcare services. We regulate preschools in the state of Hawaii. We provide child welfare services, adult protective services. We provide housing options for our low-income and working poor families. We also provide vocational rehabilitation services for blind and deaf and disabled population, and also services for at-risk youth as well. So it's a full gamut of services that we provide to Hawaii residents so they can be self-sufficient, not only for themselves, but for their future generations as well. As I've always been saying, this has been the most challenging times of my life, at least, because I was not there when 1918 pandemic or the crisis of late 1920s and early 30s was impacting our country. But I was there when economic crisis, the Great Depression of 2009 and 10 impacted Hawaii. So this is unprecedented because this required us to be very aggressive and totally out of the box, creative, innovative, to address the needs of Hawaii. We are a very sort of archaic, old technology system that is not conducive to respond very quickly. We created some of the basic tools. We adapted some of our basic tools. For example, we knew that we are a mainframe-based financial assistance and food benefits application. We decided that we are not going to burden the mainframe, instead created a static web page, created a fillable PDF application to take the burden during the peak times off of our mainframe, gather all the relevant data that we could, and then enter the data during the low peak time. So eligibility is not impacted in any way, and we are able to provide benefits within 48 hours. We are able to do eligibility, and within 3 to 5 working days, we are able to provide the electronic benefit transfer card to the residents of Hawaii who are eligible. And on the Medicaid side, we have a very sophisticated, very modern application that we were able to quickly do eligibility within 24 hours. If your application is complete, you can get your healthcare insurance called Quest in Hawaii within 24 hours. So that was the beauty of adapting to this difficult time.
You know, the banner you have behind you, Ohana Nui, that really kind of encapsulates what you're talking about.
You're absolutely correct. It is now in our enabling statute that the Department of Human Services, when it comes to serving our residents of Hawaii, the families of Hawaii, we will use multi-generational and integrated approach to deliver human services and alleviate poverty in Hawaii. And it means that we are comprehensively looking at the needs of the whole family. That means from keiki to kupuna and to other extended family members as to how to help our families in a holistic way. And that is what Ohana Nui, the extended family, is all about, because we cannot do it alone. And also, it is deeply embedded in this Aloha spirit. And Aloha spirit also teaches us that we are interdependent on each other to survive. It's for our survival. And we are going to continuously, collaboratively work with our communities and with our families and residents so we can provide them with an opportunity to not only sustain themselves, become self-sufficient, but also for their future generations.
As we wrap up our conversation today, what do you envision next? Not only for DHS, but also for our community. Help us navigate that.
A lot of the existing laws, rules, and processes were either suspended, waived, or we adapted new ones. But as the time goes on, some of these flexibilities are going to disappear because they were temporary. So we are ready to really take care of our Hawaii by retaining some of the good practices we have learned and continue to work collaboratively with the legislature and our federal partners to absolutely ensure that things that we must do and must retain we are allowed to do so we can anticipate and continue to deliver the services in uninterrupted way to our Hawaii.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
You're so welcome, and we'll be sending a lot of information your way so you can use that for your viewers as well.
Thank you for tuning in to Island Focus and meeting Pankaj Bono, who is the director of the Hawaii State Department of Human Services. Mahalo. Mahalo for tuning in to Island Focus and joining me in meeting Nancy Creedman, who is CEO of the Domestic Violence Action Center. Thank you for being with us, Nancy. So good to see you again, even under these circumstances.
Thank you for having me. It's really important for the community to understand domestic violence at this particular point in time. We want survivors and victims and children who are at home behind closed doors to know that we know they're being harmed and that we are here to provide support, safety planning, and any kind of help that they need. So thank you for having me.
What are some of the adjustments that your organization is doing some now?
Well, once we were given the directive to stay at home, it was very clear to us at the Domestic Violence Action Center that it was going to be difficult for victims and survivors to make a telephone call. So we added a text feature to our helpline. People can text us any time of day or weekday or weekend. We also added a chat feature to our website. We also made those features available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We want the community to know that we are here and ready to assist and support them.
You've been around, and your organization has been around for many years, addressing this very quiet, but very visible situation. What recommendations or what advice do you have for people now as we're navigating through this?
Well, one of the things we wanted the community to do at the outset was think about anybody they might know who they had concerns about or seen red flags. Reach out to them, listen with an open heart, offer support, let them know that there are resources and that all of our community's domestic violence programs are working and providing services and safety planning and support. Every sector in the community has a role to play. The problem of domestic violence is much bigger than the Domestic Violence Action Center. And so if all of us as a community can notice, use the words domestic violence, and give permission to survivors to reach out, that'll be an enormous help. We're anticipating a landslide after the stay-at-home directive is lifted. We think that people are going to run out of their homes saying things like, he almost killed me, my children are traumatized, we can't live like that anymore. And we're really going to need to position ourselves as a community to meet that demand. And so I call upon all of our community to stand beside us at the Domestic Violence Action Center. If you're a law enforcement officer or a judge or a healthcare practitioner or a clergy person or a teacher, notice the people in your lives and see if there are signs that may be indicators that a family needs help.
I would imagine too, but based on your comment, that you're also implying that there's a self-recognition in people right now, male and female, that they are in an abusive relationship that maybe they wouldn't have acknowledged before.
Yeah, well, everything is under a magnifying glass right now. When you are at home with somebody all the time, your options and your information is controlled by that person. That's what domestic violence is. It is a pattern of behavior by one person using their power to control the other. And when your world shrinks, it makes it very difficult for you to exercise your own personal choices, interact with other people. We have been receiving a lot of chats from people saying, I think I'm in an abusive relationship. I think I'm in a relationship that's a domestic violence relationship that I hadn't really noticed before. So all of the contacts people make with the Domestic Violence Action Center are confidential and anonymous. So you can call and ask questions, see what kind of help we might be able to provide you so that you can get free and safe if that's what you need, and help you figure out what kind of danger you're in. because each situation is different and different tactics are used by abusers to control their partners.
You know, your organization has been around for many years and has provided that safety net. Now, when people are stuck at home and can't leave, what can they do?
Sometimes when you're in a situation where danger is escalating, it's very hard to figure out what should I do. So there are if you think it through and if you create a blueprint, when you are in danger, you can just execute or implement that plan. Maybe stay out of the kitchen where there are knives or weapons. Stay out of the bathroom where there are hard surfaces and water. Maybe create a code word or an image, an emoji that you can transmit to somebody that you've asked for help and let them know that now you need help. So again, we want to encourage people to think through the possible risks that they're facing and call us and ask us for some information that would work for them when they need it.
As we wrap up our conversation today, what are some of your thoughts as we navigate out of COVID-19?
We haven't had as much attention on the problem of domestic violence since the O.J. Simpson trial. The Domestic Violence Action Center has received multiple inquiries from foundations, businesses, government agencies to lend resources and to lend support. And we desperately need that to continue in order to meet the rising demand. It's a tragedy that a catastrophe like this had to occur for people to take domestic violence seriously. And maybe this will be a launch for us to embrace the challenge that we're facing across the island.
Well, I really appreciate your energy, of course, your lifelong dedicated commitment, and the idea that it's not hopeless, that we do have not only assistance, but that we will get through this and we will return to aloha, and that rebalance can be found in our families.
Most definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, viewing audience, for joining us also on Island Focus. You've just had the opportunity to meet Nancy Friedman, who is CEO of the Domestic Violence Action Center. Mahalo. Mahalo for tuning in to Island Focus during this very unique time in our collective human history. I'm Lyla Berg. On behalf of the crew of Island Focus, as well as the committed team of staff and volunteers at Ōlelo Community Media, aloha and malama pono. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to one another. See you soon.